minute, and people are going to want to be with you, want to buy your service, want to buy your product, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to give a very short remark, and then we're going to jump right into practice, okay? But before I start my remark, I want you to pay attention. What moment, what image you remember from my talk, okay? And I'm going to ask you after I do this. So I'm very honored, and I just want to say that I want to thank Colette for allowing me this opportunity to be at this conference, because this conference is all about building relationships, long-lasting relationships, and it's not just about collecting your contact information, correct? Yes, yes. And we know that relationships is what make us successful in work and in life. And as Colette eloquently said, we rise higher when we rise together. And I think that's what I'm here today. And I know, without Colette, I wouldn't be here today, because last year I met Colette at a public narrative training, storytelling. And in that training, I asked everyone to answer one question: why do you do what you do? As we go through life, we seldom had the opportunity to pause and answer this question from our heart and not from our head. And in that training, I want to know why Colette cares about uplifting women. And for 4 weeks, I asked her to tap into her heart and share specific moments in her life that shaped her as a leader today. You see, we were taught to keep our emotions separate from logic. But relationships don't grow that way. We connect with one another because we share our lived experiences, and not our resume. I got to know Colette because when she shared her story about a moment that really impacted her life, and I know she said to me, I'm going to be out of the room when you tell this story. But when she was in college, she was the captain of her basketball team. And in the final minute of a championship game, she had a split second to decide, take the shot herself or pass it to her teammate. She passed. They didn't win the game. But that moment told me everything about who Colette is. She uplifts others. She wants people around her to shine. She organized this conference for us to build a community of leaders who bring out the best in one another and not merely expand our contact list. That is why Colette invited me to lead this exercise, the moment of hope. This is an exercise to get us to know one another by sharing our story. So think of a specific moment when you felt hope and show us that moment in 1 minute. Now, don't worry, okay? 1 minute, I will demonstrate for you along with my friend Pat so that you will know what to do. But before I invite my friend Pat to the stage, I want to share a quick story about my friend Pat. In 1999, Pat and I were selected to participate in Leadership Washington, a fellowship program that moved for movers and shakers. We hit it off and become friends instantly because both of us love to learn about diverse culture and people. So Pat learned from me how to cook pho, chicken pho, the Vietnamese noodle soup. And I learned from her how to buy a house. Fast forward, after a long career serving as executive director of a nonprofit organization and also work under the Obama administration, I pivoted and started my own company to teach leadership. I remember I had a lot of fear. I was anxious, wondering how could I get people to attend my training. During one of those panic episodes, I called Pat while I was driving up to New York. I asked her to join my first training in DC. And you know what? I didn't have to do a lot of convincing. She says yes right away. I did that happy dance in my car. Through storytelling training, I came to know Pat even more deeply. I had always known her as a person who had a great career, a wonderful family. What I didn't know was that all the challenges she had to face to get there. And knowing her full story had made me admire her even more. So after taking the training, Pat tapped into her network to recruit people, to take my training, to introduce me to people like Brian O, who is the founder and CEO of the Black Speakers Network. He participated in the training and gave me a 5-star review. So even like 7 years later, Pat continued to expand, introduce me to more people, refer more people to the training. And last month, she and I team up to teach storytelling to a group of entrepreneurs. And not only that, the people that Pat and I taught together, one of them won first prize in a business plan competition, $25,000. And another person won second prize, $20,000. So thank you, Pat. So Pat, come on up. Give Pat a very applause. So, Pat and I are going to demonstrate for you how you can tell your story in 1 minute, okay? And my friend Veronica here is going to time us, to make sure we are honest, So, so what Veronica gonna do is that Veronica gonna give us 1 minute, and this is what you're gonna do when you do this, okay, at your table. So right now, I want you to look to your right, and that's your partner, okay? So think about that. And if you don't have a partner, find a partner, okay? So this is how it's gonna work, okay? You're gonna have 1 minute to share your moment of hope. And then your partner will give you 1 minute feedback, okay? And then after that, we're gonna switch, right? And so Veronica, what gonna do is she's gonna call out when 30 seconds is left. And then when 1 minute's up, she's gonna say, stop! And you all have to stop, okay? We have to stop too, okay? So that's what's gonna happen. And then after that, right, for the person who give feedback, see, I have the little cheat sheet at your table right there. The feedback person gonna say, when I hear your challenge, I felt X. When I heard how you overcome your challenge, I feel Y. And one thing I want to know more, okay? So as a listener to give feedback, you must listen to the story so that you can give feedback. Good? Okay. So now, Veronica, you're going to give me 1 minute and I'm going to tell my story. And Pat, you're going to listen, right? You're going to give me feedback.
Yep.
And like I said to you, I throw perfection out the window. So we don't have to be perfect at all. We're just going to have some fun today and learn how to tell our story in 1 minute because that's what's going to connect us to one another in a very deep way. Okay? Okay. All right, I'm sweating now. Okay, I'm taking a deep breath. What is it? Where's Erica? I need that meditation breath. Okay. All right, ready? Okay. In 1981, I landed in Utah airport. And that was the first time, we came from the refugee camp. And so the first day in school, I attended Westlake Junior High. At the I was in the 7th grade. And at lunchtime, when all the other kids were going to lunch, I stood outside the lunchroom looking through the glass door crying because I didn't know how to ask for a lunch ticket in English. And for that whole week, all I could do is put my head down on the desk and cry. But I realized my family almost died in the ocean. And I dream of one day I'm going to go to school. I cannot cry. I had to learn English. So every night I sat up with a very thick English Green Dictionary and look up every word. Sometimes I just copy down the whole paragraph and hope for the best. And then 6 months later, I was reading Tom Sawyer. And then one day, a teacher came and pulled me out and put me in the ESL class. And I said, wait a minute, why did you put me in ESL? So I went to the principal's office and said, you need to put me back in English class. And that's my story, woman of hope, okay? So now I'm going to be quiet so Pat can give me 1 minute feedback.
Okay. Thank you for your moment of hope, and you went over a minute. Sorry, I know. So your challenge, I heard your challenge and your moment challenge of not being able to speak English and being stuck at that window looking through the door and not even being able to eat. It made me feel sad because I could relate to that. And so the moment of hope that you gave me also was that when you went to learn English and you learned English by, she didn't tell you, by reading all the words in the English dictionary and learning that way and also reading Tom Sawyer books. And so that is a moment of hope as well. And then knowing that you utilize that to turn your challenge into a moment of victory, which was being able to learn English and then promoting yourself into the ESOL classes and other and college.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to listen to Pat 1 minute story, and then I'm going to see what she says so that I can give her feedback. Okay? So, Veronica, anytime you're ready.
In 2012, we had a fledgling food pantry at our church. We would give out canned goods through a small door and realized at some point that that wasn't really serving the community the way that we wanted to serve them. And so in 2014, I took over the food pantry from Dr. Dorothy Harrison, who passed away. And I took over that food pantry to turn it into a more efficient operation. So I wrote a business plan to the Capital Area Food Bank in 2014, and then the devil took over. And it took until 2016 to really start the pantry because life was life. And so now we have a pantry that's 10 years old, and we feed over 500 families. And we also serve as a fresh produce hub for the Capital Area Food Bank in Ward 7. Ward 7 in DC is one of the poorest wards in the city, and 50%, over 55% of the residents there are food insecure.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Good job, Pat. Good job. Good job. Okay, so 1 minute for me to give feedback. So, Pat, when I heard your challenge is that, the food pantry was not serving people, right? And I was like, oh my God, that's really terrible. He has a food pantry. So I feel like upset, upset that the food pantry is not serving people. And then when I hear how you took up the leadership to take over the food pantry and you started to have this serving 500 people, right? When you give me that specific number, I feel hope. I feel like, oh my God, that's incredible. How could it? Now, I would like to know a bit more about how you go. What do you do to get to that point, right? So one thing I would like to know more is how you can get there so that I will be inspired even more. So give her hand. Okay, so you can see that the reason I would like to demonstrate this for you so that you can do it yourself, right? But before I let you do that, I just want someone to call out what image you remember from my story. What image you remember from my story? That's right, exactly. Yeah, that's right. I was reading that Green Dictionary. Very good. So what I wanted you to know is that when you tell your moment of hope, use images, okay? Try not to use adjective. And try not to use those big words like eliminate poverty, because we don't know what that looks like, okay? So try to use images. Like I stood outside the lunchroom looking through the glass door, okay? So try to use that. So Veronica, you ready? You can give them 1 minute to tell their story. Are you ready? Are you ready? I'm gonna tell you what. I'm gonna give them a mic.
I'm going to give you the 1 minute when you start. Can you all hear me? And then I'm going to say 30. That means you have 30 seconds left. And then I'm going to say stop. And then you stop. Okay. Everybody know who their partner is? Everybody knows who's going first? All right. On your mark, get set, go. Thirty. 30. 'Stop. It should be silent. Okay, now the person who is hearing the story is going to give some feedback. And in that feedback, you can identify the challenge, the moment of hope, something that was a visual that caught your memory. All right, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to start, give you the 30 seconds, and then tell you to stop. All right, on your mark, get set, go. $30. Stop. Stop. Silence. Okay, now we're going to just switch. So if you were listening, now you're going to tell your story. And if you were telling your story, now you're going to listen. All right, on your marks, get set, go. $30. All right, stop. That's 1 minute. All right. So now our listeners are going to share the challenge they heard, the moment of hope, a visual that they shared to give a little bit of feedback. Again, I'm going to start and give you the 30 seconds. All right. On your marks. Oh, hold on. Let me reset. On your marks, get set, go. 30. Stop.
All right, everyone. Woo! Give it up to, thanks, Pat and Veronica. Give them a round of applause. Woo! Okay, all right. So, what was it like for you? Did you learn something new about your partner? Go ahead. Yes? Okay. Someone use the mic. Tell me, what was it like for you? What did you learn about your partner, and what's the feeling that you have after listening to the story? Someone, come to the mic. Oh, go ahead. Come to the mic.
The adversity that this young lady was facing would have taken her to a whole nother level of demise. She used her own grit that she possessed, meaning use what you have where you are to get where you going. And that allowed her to conquer everything. And I was I was inspired. I was like, it's really impressive. And I think that the most important measure is that we're looking for validation somewhere else, allowing other people to dictate to us who they think we are. But she revved her own self up and pushed forward and left her back there.
That's right. Great. Awesome. So I just want you to know, isn't it that powerful that in 1 minute you can inspire somebody? You were inspired, right? Yes. So that is the purpose of this 1 minute moment of hope, is that you have the power in your story to connect, to raise money, to sell your product, right? Because you are telling your story. And I can tell you from my experience of founding a nonprofit and build a nonprofit from $15,000 to 1.7 annual budget is because I own my story. Okay, and I have some wonderful people in the room right now, like Nadine. Nadine, I need you to stand up and tell us how you take my class and how you been using it.
I actually took the class, and it was very powerful to me, to the point I'm using it in my business. In my newsletter that goes out every month, I have a part of my story in every one of my newsletters. Because what I learned was people weren't just buying my services, they were buying me. And it was more relatable when I told my story from an authentic place. And she taught me how to do that in less than a minute. And like I said, I use it in my social media. I actually use it in my newsletter because people really do want to know who you are when they're doing business with you. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to stay here to answer any question. But if you want to check out my class, there's a QR code at your table. We are going to have a public class on April 30th. I don't want to stand between you and lunch, but I will be here to answer any question. Okay? Give yourself a hand. Woo!